Welcome back. So, this week I want to talk about an important tool that you'll probably use in most of your mixes and productions, and that is the compressor. And the compressor is useful in many cases. You can put it on your vocals, your drums, really anything that needs dynamic taming. And that's the main reason we would use a compressor, is to help tame the dynamics. And ultimately, when you just throw a compressor on to a track, it's going to make that track quieter. But what it's really doing is bringing these loud noises down and the quieter noises up. And that's why it's called a compressor, because it's quite literally compressing the audio signal. So there are a couple key things on the compressor that you should know how to use, and I'll just run over those quick. The first would be the threshold. And so the threshold is at what point the compressor starts to act. So for example, if we have it at -3 dBs, the compressor still isn't doing anything because our signal isn't hitting 3 dBs. However, if we were to bring it down to, let's say, -12, then we can see our compression starting to work. And just to show how this signal chain is working here, I have 2 faders, and then I have the compressor. And so this is the volume without compression, and then this is the volume after the compression. And so if we bring the threshold really far down, we're gonna really be compressing the signal, and you'll hear the volume go down quite a bit. So the next thing we have is the ratio, and the ratio is really the intensity of how hard it's compressing our signal. If we had our ratio at 1:1, that means it's also not doing anything. If we had it at 2:1, that means, for example, every 2 decibels that we go over the threshold, it's going to bring that volume down to 1 or up to 1. Depends on how you think about it, but basically it's bringing the volume down. And then if we have it all the way to infinity to 1, that's going to be a brick wall compressor, also known as a limiter. And that means whatever point the threshold is set at, that is going to be the wall at which the signal cannot exceed. So basically, if we have our threshold at -14 dBs, there's going to be no signal above that threshold. And so the next thing we have is our attack, and the attack determines how long it takes for the compression to reach its maximum. And so you can also think of this as terms of like a guard dog. And so a guard dog, if say the attack time was very short, that means the guard dog would maybe start barking right away. If the attack time was longer, let's say 1 second, it would take 1 second for the guard dog to start barking. So that's an analogy to think about attack time. And so if we have a short attack time, it just takes a short time for the compressor to start acting. Release is how long it takes for the compression to stop acting after it goes through the threshold here. And so if you have a signal and you have a very short release, then it's going to act very shortly after it passes through the threshold. It's going to act very quickly compared to as if you had a longer release, then the compressor would not stop right away. And in this example, it's just basically going to compress the signal the entire time if it's a very long release. So sometimes you might just want to set the release to auto. If you have too short of a release time, it can create some fluctuations in the audio, which can make it sound unnatural. Unless you're going for that sound, sometimes people might do that, but generally auto can't hurt, or just setting the default at 30 milliseconds here works as well. So that's a quick run through of compression. It's a helpful tool, and it will be very important for you to understand what a compressor does in your audio productions.